On the final morning of 1944, the airfield at Thorp Abbotts in Norfolk stirred under a heavy grey sky. The 100th Bomb Group, known across the 8th Air Force as the Bloody 100th, prepared for what appeared to be a routine mission. Their target, Hamburg, a major industrial hub vital to Germany's war effort. 19 B-17 flying fortresses lined the perimeter track, each crew trained, disciplined, and hardened by months of attrition over occupied Europe. The winter weather had delayed operations for days, but now the order had come: mission number 227. Engines roared, filling the cold air with the vibration of power and routine courage. In formation, the group would climb to 19,000 feet, guided by precise doctrine. Every maneuver, every interval between aircraft was dictated by the Air Force's procedural manual. Experience had refined these rules in blood. The men of the 100th trusted the structure. It was the only thing that separated order from chaos above Germany. The bombers climbed through cloud layers and assembled over the North Sea, moving east toward the target. Radio chatter was minimal. They had done this countless times, but over the frozen landscape ahead, flak towers waited, and German radar was already tracking them. The grey skis that protected them from fighters also hid the real danger: limited visibility, shifting winds, and the constant risk of collision inside a tight combat box. As they approached Hamburg, the mission began to unravel. The lead group adjusted altitude to avoid heavy anti-aircraft bursts. One formation drifted slightly upward. Another descended into its path. Snow squalls and turbulence blurred formation lines. In seconds, two four-engine bombers, each the size of a small house, found themselves converging, invisible to one another in the storm. The aircraft met with a thunderous impact. In a single violent instant, two B-17s, one piloted by Lieutenant Clarence Rojan, the other by Lieutenant William Leake, locked together mid-air over Germany. Their wings interlocked, propellers sheared metal, and the fuselages fused in an impossible embrace. The collision destroyed flight control in both bombers, yet neither disintegrated. Instead, the two great machines remained connected, turning slowly in the sky. Inside, chaos reigned. Instruments shattered, engines caught fire, and oxygen lines burst. Yet both pilots, trained to act rather than react, fought for control. Rojan feathered the number 3 propeller, Leake shut down a flaming engine. Against all probability, the combined wreckage steadied into a shallow descent. The noise was deafening, metal tearing, wind screaming through ruptured fuselage sections, the thud of unbalanced propellers beating against empty air. The crews, separated by twisted aluminum, had no idea the other aircraft was still attached. In the upper bomber, men bilayed out through the top turret and waist hatches. In the lower, some were trapped by the interlocked structure. A few parachutes bloomed in the grey sky, others never opened. From the ground, German flak observers watched in disbelief. Through their binoculars, they saw what appeared to be a single massive bomber with 8 engines and 2 tails, something no one had ever witnessed before. Reports later described it as a twin fuselage flying fortress, descending in eerie silence after the engines quit. At roughly 13,000 feet, both crews realized that control was gone. The hybrid machine drifted south, losing altitude, until one final explosion tore through its belly. The rear fuselage of the lower bomber sheared away. The upper aircraft began to spin. Those who could escape jumped. Others stayed inside, riding the wreckage down. The tangled bombers struck the ground near the village of Großhensdorf. The impact was cataclysmic, a crater large enough to swallow both aircraft. Fires burned for hours. Local civilians and Luftwaffe personnel rushed to the site, pulling survivors from the wreckage. Only a handful remained alive. When reports reached Thorp Abbotts, confusion spread through operations headquarters. 2 crews were missing, their aircraft call signs gone silent. For hours, mission controllers scoured radio logs and formation charts. Only after intelligence confirmed the crash near Hamburg did the full picture emerge. The official missing air crew reports, numbers 11,155 and 11,156, documented the extraordinary event in terse military language. 2 B-17s interlocked in midair, descended together, crashed as one aircraft. Of the 20 men who took off that morning, 15 perished. The survivors were captured and taken to Luftwaffe interrogation centers, then to prisoner of war camps across Germany. Their testimonies, preserved after liberation, described the impossible sight of another bomber welded to their own, a sight none would ever forget. Back at Thorp Abbotts, their comrades assembled for the evening briefing. The losses were read aloud. The room fell silent as names were listed: Rojan, Leek, and their crews. It was not the first tragedy for the 100th Bomb Group, but it stood apart for its sheer improbability. The bloody 100th had earned its name through sacrifice, and this incident became one of the most haunting examples of how mechanical precision and human endurance intersected in war. Post-war investigators examined photographs and eyewitness reports, confirming that the interlock had held for several miles of descent, an aeronautical anomaly that defied physics. Aviation engineers later studied the case as an example of how structural stresses can balance under extreme conditions. Today, the story of the interlocked B-17s survives in archives, museum displays, and veterans' recollections. It represents not only a bizarre accident, but also a lesson in the resilience and discipline of airmen who faced death at 20,000 feet and still acted with calm professionalism. For the men of the 8th Air Force, every mission carried risk, yet it was this unshakable sense of duty, the belief that order must prevail even in chaos, that defined them. The two B-17s that became one impossible machine remain an enduring symbol of that spirit. Two crews bound together in the final moment of flight, transforming tragedy into an eternal testament of courage and composure amid the violence of the skies.